True Story Media.
Hi, I'm here to pick up my son Milo.
There's no Milo here.
Who picked up my son from school?
Streaming only on Peacock.
I'm gonna need the name of everyone that could have a connection.
You don't understand. It was just the 5 of us.
So this was all planned.
What are you gonna do? I will do whatever it takes to get my son back.
I honestly didn't see this coming. These nice people killing each other.
All Her Fault, a new series streaming now only on Peacock.
So my name is Bill Petrich. 15 years ago, I was a senior in college in Michigan. I was 21 years old.
At just 21 years old, Bill received one of the most life-altering news of his life. News that would set him on a course for the next 15 years.
I knew that I was feeling pretty sick my senior year of college. My head was getting bigger and bigger. My neck was really sore. I knew something was seriously wrong with me. And so finally I went into the student clinic one morning and basically explained my symptoms. And I had a really good doctor who gave me a chest x-ray and pretty much immediately identified a big mass on the film and was basically like, okay, we need to get you to the hospital ASAP. So he put me in a cab and, a few minutes later I'm at the ER and basically was in the hospital for the next 2 weeks getting biopsied and treated and diagnosed and everything you can imagine, every test, every blood draw. And it was a big shock to me, as you can imagine, being a 21-year-old who had never really thought about cancer.
But that shock turned into an opportunity.
In addition to it being a really shocking personal experience, there was also this element of this is the biggest piece of Bill news anyone's ever heard. This is outrageously juicy gossip that a 21-year-old has cancer in college. My friends aren't going to believe this. I was hyper aware of the fact that this was a social event in my life too. This was something I had to tell people. This was something that people would have a reaction to that I would have to manage and deal with. And the more I told people, the more it became apparent that this was almost a power that you had over people, because it's just so shocking when you hear that one of your peers, a young person, has cancer. People fly into action. They want to help you. They want to do things for you. They want to praise you. They want to be there for you and hold your arm. But it became pretty obvious that if you did have an emotional void in your life, if you did want to manipulate people, telling them you have cancer is a really good way to do it, because it changes how people look at you. It changes how people react. It's almost a force in the room when a young person tells you that they have cancer. It instills fear in people. It instills love in some people and just really kicks in that instinct to do something.
But there was a problem. Bill didn't look like he had cancer.
From the outside, some people would have thought you were fine because you were playing sports, you were out and about.
Yeah, it was important to me as a 21-year-old that I didn't just become a patient who was sick, and that was the long and short of my story. I still felt like me. I was still me inside. I wanted cancer to be as normal of a medical condition as possible that I could treat and move on from. And like a lot of millennials at that period, and still, I didn't want to do it in the Lifetime movie, oh, it's so sad, have you heard about Bill, kind of invalid style. Like a lot of millennials, I still wanted to be me. I wanted to inject some humor. I wanted to maybe surprise people by how normal someone with cancer could look. So I got to the point where I was almost nonchalant about it. I would drop the fact that I had cancer as the third or fourth thing in a sentence in conversation, almost to get a reaction out of people, because I knew it was shocking, and I knew it was shocking to be matter of fact about having cancer. So I'd roll into class, I'd mention it, but I wouldn't make it the main thing. And it was kind of a social experiment. It was interesting to see people have to treat it like something that's more normal and not the biggest tragedy you've ever heard of. So yeah, I played intramural sports. I still, had a sex life. I still worked a job. I was still trying to be a pretty normal college student, but that diagnosis was definitely still like an element in the room for my peers. And I even had a cancer party when I got out of the hospital, and I didn't want it to be a sad party. I was making jokes the whole time. I was taking pictures. I was being pretty inappropriate, which in retrospect, kind of seemed like maybe I was faking it. I was acting kind of outlandish. And in retrospect, it was like a defense mechanism, or it was a survival technique to normalize the diagnosis as much as I could. But it was probably weird for other people. And I can imagine some people in the back of their head being like, this doesn't really seem like how someone with cancer is supposed to behave.
Yeah, because at that time that you're describing, do you have a shaved head, or do you appear like you have cancer?
Yeah, I did have a shaved head, and that was really the main indicator physically that I had cancer. But unlike a lot of people with cancer, I gained weight when I was in treatment. My head got bigger. I kind of just looked like I thought I was tough. I looked like a weightlifter with a chain, a bald head, kind of like I was taking steroids or something. If you saw me, your first thought wouldn't have been that guy has cancer. It would have been that guy looks like kind of a gym bro.
Exactly.
The way Bill puts it, telling people you have cancer gives you an overwhelming power. When I first came across Bill's videos on TikTok,
why do people fake cancer though? This is what everyone asks me.
I wasn't sure what to make of him. He talks about cancer with this dry, almost casual, like he's done this 1,000 times kind of way. And then there's the fact that he didn't look sick. In fact, he says that in college, he was strong, athletic, and part of me just thought, is this guy serious? Or is this another one of those stories? Another person on the internet milking it for clout. We've all seen this movie before. People who say they have cancer, but really don't. In fact, Bill calls himself, quote, the faking cancer expert on TikTok.
I'm the faking cancer expert, and I've probably...
Which, let's be honest, that's kind of a weird thing to put on your bio. So that's what we're talking about today. This is part 1 of the Cancer Sympathy Machine, a new series about the rare few who fake cancer, and the one man who understands them better than anyone. I'm Javier Leiva, and this is Pretend, stories about real people pretending to be someone else. On this show, we like to dig into the dark corners of the internet, and sometimes that means combing through the dark web itself. I look for leaked credentials, impersonation attempts, anything that might reveal a weak spot. It's slow, manual, and honestly, most companies don't even bother doing it. Today's sponsor, NordStellar, does that work for you. One of the most powerful use cases is account takeover prevention. If your company's credential gets leaked onto the dark web, and that happens more often than you think, NordStellar spots it early. It monitors for leaked passwords, sensitive data, and even active session cookies, so that you could shut it down before someone else makes a move. Think of it as having a 24/7 scout watching the dark web for you. NordStellar gives you the visibility that you can actually act on. If your business wants that kind of protection, check out nordstellar.com/pretend. That's NordStellar.com/pretend. And don't forget about the coupon code BlackFriday20, one word, for an exclusive discount. I'll have a link in the show notes. Cancer.
Yeah, it makes people do funny things. I mean, some people, it goes the opposite way, and they're so terrified of the fact that you have cancer, and they think about their own mortality and the fact that if someone like you, who's my peer, has cancer, that means I can get cancer, and that's really scary. And so some people run the other way, and they're like, I don't want to talk to that guy ever again. That scares the hell out of me. I don't even want to think about cancer. I don't want to be in the same room. But a lot of people go a different direction. And it's like, oh my God, I'm so grateful that that's not me. I feel so bad for this person. I am ready to crawl over broken glass for them. I am ready to go grocery shopping for them. I am ready to, be the shoulder to cry on. I will do anything for this person. And that's a really powerful instinct that can be manipulated if you're the kind of person who wants to manipulate people.
And when we talk about cancer as a society, we tend to focus on the negative aspects, but not Bill. Bill is fascinated by the power that cancer gives you. And he says that you don't even need to have cancer to wield this power. In fact, he spent the last decade and a half studying people who say they have cancer, but really don't.
I call myself the faking cancer expert on TikTok and elsewhere because I've spent the last 15 plus years tracking these cases, researching these people, and really learning everything I can about the deep, dark world of faking cancer, which is not an area I ever imagined I would call my own.
When I came across Bill's videos on social media, I'll be honest, part of me was wondering, was Bill faking cancer too? I mean, how would we really know? I mean, anyone can post hospital photos, right? Anyone can say that they lost their hair or that they beat the odds. I mean, we've seen people fake this before, and some of them were convincing enough to fool their families, their friends, even entire online communities. So I listened with suspicion because, that's what we do now. We doubt first. But Bill really did have cancer. When doctors told him that he had non-Hodgkin's lymphoma, a cancer that's serious but highly treatable. 6 months of chemo, a month of radiation, and by graduation, he was in remission. 15 years later, the cancer is still gone. It went as smoothly as cancer can go, but the experience changed him. Because once you've lived through something that makes people see you differently, with sympathy, with awe, with fear, you don't forget that. And years later, Bill wanted to understand why anyone would pretend to have the very thing that could have killed him.
I don't even remember if it was on my phone or on my computer. I was just kind of going through the news aimlessly, and I saw a headline about someone who had been caught faking cancer. And I mean, my jaw hit the floor because I'd never heard of anyone faking cancer, but in a weird way, like within a split second, it occurred to me that oh, of course that's a thing. Of course that would be a thing because I saw so many social benefits from faking cancer, and I was able to wield some kind of dark social power just by having cancer among other young people who aren't used to it, that it made sense to me that people would want that power and would want that influence without having to go through the medical part of it.
Faking cancer, while rare, isn't unheard of. In fact, I get this story pitched to me quite often. A woman who shaves her head to raise money for treatment. A mom who tells her friends that she's dying. An influencer who posted chemo selfies online.
I mean, if you would look at me, you wouldn't even realize that I'm sick and going through treatment.
Each time, the world reacts the same way. Shock, outrage, disbelief. How could someone lie about something like that? But what Bill discovered is that these hoaxes, as isolated as they seem, all share the same DNA, a craving for connection, attention, or control. And it's not always about money for most of them. It's about that feeling that comes when the world finally pays attention.
I went down the rabbit hole that night, and I wanted to see if other people were doing this, figuring, maybe this has happened a couple times. And a cursory Google search was like, oh, this is happening all over the place. There's 10, 20, 30 articles about different cases that I can find just by Googling around. And that kind of shocked me, just how seemingly common it was. And each story you would read, it would be like this unthinkable, monstrous act that no one could ever imagine. And you read that kind of prose in several different articles, and it was like, well, maybe someone needs to start imagining that this is a thing that happens. I didn't think these people were monsters. I thought they were stupid millennials who were seeking attention, but that didn't seem that aberrant to me because that was my milieu. Those were my peers. Clearly, there were incentives at play here that were bigger than just the individual. And so I started keeping track of cases in a spreadsheet, really so I could just start to see some demographic information. And within the first few months, some stuff became really obvious.
He started to see a pattern. Most people who faked cancer weren't elderly or middle-aged. They were young.
That it was really more common among like teenagers and people in their 20s and early 30s.
And the demographic skewed in one direction.
It was predominantly women who were doing it, like 3-to-1 ratio of women to men, and it was mostly white women.
And Bill's gut instinct, turns out the data backs him up. In 2016, a study published in General Hospital Psychiatry reviewed 455 cases of factitious disorder. That's the psychiatric diagnosis for people who fake or induce illnesses, Munchausen. And yes, cancer fakers fit squarely under that umbrella. And the pattern? Pretty hard to miss. Most of them were women, usually in their 30s, often with backgrounds in healthcare or science, and many had histories of depression, trauma, or both. And some went as far as hurting themselves just to make the lie more believable. But while most cancer fraud cases involve women, especially young white women, there are outliers. One of them, DJ Carey. If you're from Ireland, you already know the name. DJ Carey isn't just anybody. He's a sports legend, a hurling icon, the kind of guy who could walk into any pub and never have to buy his own pint. So when word spread that Carey had cancer, aggressive, life-threatening cancer, people didn't ask questions. They just opened up their wallets. Over the course of several years, Carey convinced at least 22 people to give him nearly $500,000. And here's the kicker. He didn't fake it online. This wasn't some GoFundMe scam. He was telling friends, business associates, even family, face to face. This is one of his victims talking to RTE1 out of Ireland.
He said, "Noel, I'm in serious trouble. I have brain cancer. I need to go to Seattle, Washington on Tuesday for an operation." He says, "I'm covered to the tune of 80%. So I've only come up with 20% of the money. Could you give me 20,000? And I'm about just to say, "Yes, DJ, I'll give you the 20,000, no bother," when my wife started crossing her hands and shaking her head not to give it. So DJ, tell you what, I won't give you 20, I'll give you 10.
He said he needed the money for experimental treatment, something really urgent, private, overseas, but it was all a lie.
I was watching the McKenna Cup final on television. I said, "There's DJ." He was in Seattle, Washington. He was running up and down the sideline. He was the manager of Carlo YT, and I knew that was the end of it.
Faking cancer was just one of the schemes in a long list of scandals tied to DJ Carey. Before this, he was already facing backlash over failed businesses and massive unpaid debts. None of it related to cancer, by the way. In 2025, Carey pleaded guilty to deception and fraud. This isn't about money or scamming the system. It's about being seen, being cared for, feeling important.
Originally, I was like, I need to start keeping track of these cases and seeing how common this is. And if no one's reporting on this, maybe I need to be doing that. I felt really motivated that I had the qualifications as someone who had had cancer and had been thinking about the social dynamics of having cancer.
Bill actually contacts these cancer fakers and convinces them to talk confidentially to him. He just simply wants to know why.
And, years and years of keeping track of these cases. I wasn't doing this full time, obviously. It was kind of I hesitate to call it a hobby because it's such a weird hobby, but it was a side project for several years, sort of building up this spreadsheet. I talked to a number of cancer fakers. I've got ongoing text conversations with a handful of people who've been caught faking cancer, who have been really open-hearted and willing to talk to me.
Bill is a lot more empathetic than I expected, and honestly, probably more empathetic than you or me sitting at home listening to this.
You've got to have some room in your heart for people to come back from something like this, because a lot of the people who do this 5 years down the road, they're not going to stand by it. They're going to apologize. They're going to say, "It's the worst thing I ever did. If I could do anything, I wish I could undo that."
Madison Russo was a college student when she told the world that she had stage 2 pancreatic cancer, acute lymphoblastic leukemia, and a tumor the size of a football wrapped around her spine. She shared her story everywhere: TikTok, Facebook, LinkedIn, and of course, she launched a GoFundMe, but none of it was true. Here's Madison speaking to the court after she was caught.
Your Honor, first and foremost, I want to thank the court for the opportunity to speak today in front of you all. This experience, has been by far one of the most difficult things to navigate in my life. It has been very scary and challenging in more ways than one. I fully acknowledge that what I did was wrong, and I am incredibly sorry. If there was anything I could do to take it back, I would. The reality is that I can't.
So I just don't want people to be permanently villains if they're open to change, if they're open to looking at themselves. And there are cancer fakers who never change, who continue to lie and steal and never really look at themselves, and they're serial criminals, basically.
Or people with severe mental issues.
People are coming out of the woodworks to help, which is, will restore anyone's faith in humanity.
This is Jessica Cornell Smith, the woman behind the hashtag Fight Like Jessica. She told friends and family that she wasn't just battling cancer, she was also fighting to keep the lights on. She said medical bills alone were swallowing her whole.
I actually have some chemo burns right now.
She told the Ever Loving Truth podcast,
the doctor is taking my history as he's looking at my blood work, and he's like, I really think you have colon cancer.
But when people started questioning her story, Jessica lashed out.
You've made my life hell. I hope you feel good about that. I hope you feel good about doing this to someone who's in active fucking cancer treatment. I hope you feel good about that.
Jessica Cornell Smith raised about $12,000 on GoFundMe and Facebook, claiming that she had cancer. She told people that she was fighting to survive and struggling with bills, but none of it was true. In 2021, she pled guilty to theft by deception and forgery. She got probation and even had to pay the money back. And she's just one of many. Over the past few years, people all over the country have been charged with crimes like wire fraud, mail fraud, and straight-up theft for pulling off fake cancer schemes. It's tough to say exactly how many, but the cases are definitely growing, especially with the rise of online crowdfunding. One thing's for sure, when people get caught, they don't just face public shame, they face serious legal consequences. And it makes you wonder, how do you come back from that? When the lie unravels, when your back's against the wall, and the truth finally comes out, how do you move on? When we come back, we're diving into Faking Cancer 101. If you're going to do it, you better make it look real. That's coming up after the break. This message is sponsored by Greenlight. I'm the parent of 2 teens, and people warned me time goes by so fast. But what they didn't warn me was that they're actually more expensive as they get older. And it's not like $5 here, $5 there. They're asking for a lot of money. I mean, in this economy, come on. The truth is, this is the greatest opportunity to teach them how to manage their own money. That's where Greenlight comes in. Greenlight is a debit card and money app made for families. Parents can send money to their kids and keep an eye on their kids' spending and saving, while kids and teens build money confidence and lifelong financial literacy. With the Greenlight app, kids learn how to save, invest, and spend wisely. Oh, and Greenlight also has chores features where you can set one-time or recurring chores. You know, this is where my wife and I really messed up because we never had cash around the house, so there was no motivation to get things done. Now, with Greenlight, it's all in the app and you can do instant reward to reinforce that behavior. My daughter is now managing her money on Greenlight, and she already did the math and knows how much more money she can spend until her next allowance. And this is great. She's doing this all on her own, and it's all because of this app. Greenlight is an easy, convenient way for parents to raise financially smart kids and families to navigate life together. Maybe that's why millions of parents trust and kids love learning about money on Greenlight, the #1 family finance and safety app. Don't wait to teach your kids real-world money skills. Start your risk-free Greenlight trial today at greenlight.com/pretend. That's greenlight.com/pretend. greenlight.com/pretend. A lot of these cancer fakers go out of their way to make it look convincing. Take Jessica Smith, for example. She actually booked iron infusion treatments, not for chemo, but to the average person, they look close enough. And some of them even show up at the ER for unrelated issues, just to snap a photo in a hospital bed with a heart monitor in the background. It's not about the treatment, it's about the optics, right? Then there are the DIY types, like Madison Russo, who we spoke about earlier.
My name is Maddie Russo, and this is my story.
She didn't just fake it with words, she staged it. In her TikTok videos, Madison appeared to be going through chemotherapy. She had tubes taped to her chest, an IV line in her arm, a port taped over her collarbone, and to most viewers, it looked convincing. But to medical professionals and a few eagle-eyed followers, something wasn't adding up. The placement of her IV lines didn't make sense. Her gastrostomy tube was taped in a way that no hospital would ever approve. And even the tape that she used to secure her port wasn't clinical grade. Eventually, police got a search warrant for her home. That's where they found all the gear, the tubes, the medical props, stuffed away like a small theater production company. The equipment was wrong, the terminology didn't add up, and one oncology nurse even pointed out that the way she taped her nasal tube would have made it impossible for her to breathe. Still, it wasn't enough to convince strangers. She raised over $37,000 on GoFundMe before anyone asked any questions.
There's a few common red flags that I see among a lot of cancer fakers. In general, I don't think you should be looking to disprove someone's cancer claims because, again, most people are not lying. There's some pretty obvious red flags that I think anyone could pick up on, whether it's faking cancer or faking anything, which is just a person really going out of their way to publicize and try to make things go viral and just try to, ratchet up as much attention about a tragedy as possible. They refuse to share details about the diagnosis. They're very open about the fact that they have cancer. They talk about the fact that they have cancer a lot, but they never talk about what treatment they're doing, what the name of their doctor is, some difficulty that happened at chemo or whatever. There's just no.
That's how to spot a lie too, right? When somebody tells you, if there's no details, it's like that person wasn't there, right?
Right.
Yeah.
And another big red flag is that people will say that they only want to do their appointments alone. They don't want to let anyone go with them. They don't want any help. They're a total lone wolf about it. And I want to be clear, there are people who have cancer who want to be lone wolves about it, but generally those aren't the people who are also publicizing the fact that they have cancer online and talking about it all the time. So it's this contrast between I want to talk about having cancer all the time, but I'm never going to share any actual details, and I don't want anyone to be in the room with me. It's just all the general discussion of it.
And in my experience, talking and looking at cases similar to this, they generate a lot of documentation, even though they're the lone wolves, right? That go to the doctor by themselves. Their spouse or loved one or whatever doesn't go to these sessions with them, but they're sometimes talking with the actual doctor over the phone.
Yeah.
There's email correspondence.
Yes.
I mean, they make it very believable, right?
Totally. And I mean, in real cancer, you've got all these pill bottles, you've got all these, it's not, it's not just chemo. It's you've got sleeping pills and nausea pills and all these, subsidiary medications just to manage symptoms and stuff. It looks like your house is a small pharmacy with all the medical devices and stuff. And a lot of people just don't have that.
Let's talk about Elizabeth Teckenbrock. In 2024, she went viral on TikTok after posting a video of herself, a single mom, crying while making her own birthday cupcakes. She said she wanted her kids to feel happy for her, even if things were falling apart behind the scenes. The moment struck a chord online. But not everything about Elizabeth Teckenbrock's story added up. Here's Cece Suarez, a YouTuber who produces the eLIESabeth podcast, which is a deep dive into the Teckenbrock drama.
She posted a video crying because, of course, before you start crying, you have to put your tripod up and record it, or it didn't happen. So that's super authentic. But she was making a video of her baking cupcakes, and on the screen, it said basically, when you're a single mother and you are so upset or something, and something along the lines of I'm just going to bake this for my own birthday because, you know, my kids want to be able to sing happy birthday to me.
And this video really resonated with single moms.
And that went pretty viral. And massively viral.
Before that viral video and before her divorce, Elizabeth Teckenbrock was already up to some questionable stuff. Back in 2020, her then husband, Andrew, came home from work and noticed a lump under her arm. He said it looked serious and that she should check it out. Elizabeth told him that she was going to go to the doctor alone because at the time, COVID restrictions meant that only patients were allowed inside. Here's Andrew, her now ex-husband.
Maybe 2 weeks passed and she gets a phone call. We're in the car driving. I'll never forget this. We were driving in the car and she goes, "It's my doctor's." And I just said, "Yeah, answer it." So she answers it and she's on the phone with them, and I got a feeling, I guess, it wasn't going to be good news. She hung up with the doctor and she told me that she had lymphoma. My heart just sunk.
So Elizabeth Teckenbrock took to TikTok to document her cancer journey.
Hey guys, I just wanted to get on and do an update myself. I have been feeling really sick since I woke up. I woke up with a temperature of 101.9, I think, and then it's now at like 103. So right now I'm just waiting on a call back from my doctor on what they want me to do. I'm getting to the point right now where like I have to have help walk into the bathroom, or like I'm gonna go take a shower, and I know I can't do that myself right now. I'm too weak. I don't know how anyone does this, but thank you to everyone who has reached out and said prayers for me, and hopefully this fight with lymphoma ends in a good way.
And so she not only faked having cancer, but then also herself, but then telling people that her daughter had cancer.
Cici Suarez, who's been closely documenting all of Elizabeth Teckenbrock's claims, says that this wasn't a one-time lie. It was a pattern. On December 16th, 2020, Elizabeth told people that she had stage 4 B-cell non-Hodgkin's lymphoma. She claimed it had spread so aggressively into her lungs that doctors were talking about putting her on the transplant list. And to make this story even more dramatic, she said that she was pregnant with their 4th child.
Pretty soon after saying that she's pregnant, and then also saying that she has cancer while she's pregnant, and then she's in remission, but then she has cancer again. Now she needs a liver transplant. Then she, you know, they have the kid, she's pregnant again, and all while she doesn't have cancer, and she doesn't need a liver transplant, anything like that.
Convincing the internet that she had cancer is one thing, but to fool your spouse? Now that takes a little bit more work.
She had a procedure done on her neck and spine area. I was looking for like bandages and she was just acting very weird.
Andrew eventually discovered the fraud by calling the facility that she allegedly visited.
I decided to call to try and see if she is a patient there. So I started calling the facility that sent her out for this procedure, see if she's a patient. I said who I was. I said that, my wife, I said her first and last name and date of birth, gets treatment at your facility. And I just want to know what antibiotics she should be on because she just had a procedure. Can you look her up? They looked her up. They could not find her. I said, okay, maybe it's under this last name, At this point, I didn't know if she legally changed her name or not. When we got married, I gave her maiden name. Nothing. I thought on an off chance, maybe she used her mom's maiden name because she goes by that sometimes. So I used all these different name combinations, and they said they had no record of her whatsoever.
When confronted about this, Elizabeth Teckenbrock changed her story.
I had stage 1. It was exaggerated on the internet for sure. That was a mistake of mine that I used to get out of my marriage. I've already talked about that, but I did have it. So that's all I've said, and that's really all I'm ever going to say about it for now.
So she went from stage 4 cancer to stage 1. Just like that. It was a miracle. But then someone got access to Elizabeth's email and browser history. And what did they find? It was basically a fake Cancer for Dummies starter pack. It turns out that she was allegedly researching different types of cancer, almost like she's shopping around for the best one. She searched for things like stage 4 cancer PET scan, how to know if cancer is getting worse, and can they put a cancer port while pregnant? She even looked up, what is a cancer port made of? All of it was part of an effort to make her lie look real. And she didn't stop at research. She built her own fake cancer port using gauze and medical tape. She took staged photos, trying to pass herself off as a patient in treatment. And the crazy part is, it kind of worked for a while.
The emails was a big thing. He was able to see forwarded emails that she forwarded to herself from her children's pediatrician. And then she fudged them up to make them look like they were oncologist appointments.
She actually Googled, is it illegal to fake cancer? And asked, can someone get in trouble for lying about cancer? She started searching how to fake a death certificate. And at one point, she even looked up whether scammers are intelligent or just plain evil.
I'm sorry for people that I have hurt. Most of what my ex-husband has put on the line online is true. Things I have done, things I have said. I've done really awful things.
Since working on this story, I've had listeners reach out and share their own experiences. Their mom, their dad, a friend, people in their lives who claim to have cancer. Not to steal money or run a major scam, but to get out of something, avoiding responsibility or just to feel cared for. Nothing quite as extreme as the stories I covered today, obviously, but still, it stuck with them. If you have a story about someone in your life who has fake cancer or any other disease, send me a voice memo to javier@pretendradio.org. You never know, I may include it in part 2. Part 2 of the Cancer Sympathy Machine. We are going to explore the reasons why people fake cancer, and a few, surprisingly, might even feel understandable, maybe? We're going to talk about remorse. We're going to ask if any of these people deserve a second chance, and we'll dig into the legal consequences. What actually happens when someone fakes cancer and gets caught? That's coming up in part 2. Today's episode was written and edited by me, Javier Leiva, and our theme music is by Joe Basile with thechicken.net. If you produce videos and need sound design, you should definitely check Joe out. We can't end this episode without giving Laura Owens an honorable mention. Laura Owens, you might remember her from the Internet Saves the Bachelor series. She too had a little bit of a flirting with faking cancer. My goal is to produce a lot of content in the next 2 months. I have a plan. Now, can I get it done? We'll see. So stay tuned. If you want bonus content or ad-free episodes, join our Patreon or Pretend Plus on Apple Podcasts for $3 a month. Cheaper than a cup of coffee. You're supporting independent journalism at a time when I'm kind of drowning in legal bills. But seriously, I mean, it takes a village, right? And if you enjoyed this show and you are able to, I would really, really appreciate it. But if you can't, if money's tight, the best thing you could do to support the show is to comment on Spotify, to rate and review on Apple Podcasts, text a friend about this episode. Do it now. That goes a long way, I promise. All right, that's it for today. I'll talk to you next time.